Today on Corporate Review, join us as we explore innovative technologies.
In this on-location field report, we take a look at EHT's solutions and the people whose lives are changed forever by their solutions.
Historically, wind and solar power have not been realistic options for the immediate installation of power in less developed countries due to the expense. Villages would have to wait years until a grid could be built to provide them with much-needed power. Dynamic Hybrid Technologies has developed a revolutionary solution that provides wind and solar energy for villages off-grid and can be installed in an hour. What makes EHT unique is the fact that they can deploy anywhere in the world within an hour. Most other companies or competitors in this market can't make that claim. EHT's products can be deployed in either an off-grid or on-grid solution. They combine solar energy, wind energy, and battery storage into one package. What they see from their competition is a highly fragmented market in which solar panel providers, wind energy providers, and battery providers are all working separately from each other. EHT brings that energy solution into one package, a micro-utility that includes solar, wind, and battery working together for maximum efficiency, maximum energy production, and deployable anywhere in the world at any time. Dynamic Hybrid Technologies provides a smart, immediate, and sustainable solution made with Canadian quality and reliability that creates the much-needed energy to forever change developing nations around the world. EHT's technology can be deployed anywhere in the world where there is a need for power or to reduce the cost of power, specifically in mature markets where there would be an offset to rising electricity rates. In developing markets, EHT becomes the de facto power source or power solution where there's a lack of infrastructure or grid infrastructure. EHT's technology is deployable within an hour of arriving at its location.
%90 of the world has no grid, so we're looking at what we call a microgrid installation, and that is to put power and use it. Rather than distributing it from Nanticoke or from Bruce Nuclear, we actually produce it locally and use it locally, and that way you don't need the whole grid infrastructure, the overhead wires.
So in Ontario here, that could include Aboriginal communities, I imagine?
Well, and there is a lot of Aboriginal communities that absolutely need this kind of power, but there is a lot of other communities as well in the north. And if you look at, just people in cottage country, if you're setting up a cottage today and you want to connect to the grid, you're looking at hydro costs of up to $30,000 per pole to bring power to you. Or if you're on an island, the cost of submerging power lines today is off the charts. So if with a solution like this, we can put this pole or use our cubes to power any of those solutions.
And so that's kind of in the area here. You guys are working internationally.
Correct. A big application for us is in cellular towers, and a lot of people don't even think about their cell phone, but whenever you see a cell tower, it requires electricity to power it. And if there's no grid available, they power it with diesel generators, some of them using 28,000 liters a year. So now with our solution, we can reduce all that carbon, reduce all the costs and all the delivery by having wind and solar on the actual cell tower. And this is in places like China, India, Africa, the US and Canada. There's lots of areas here where people are servicing cell towers off-grid by helicopter. It's tremendously expensive to get the power and the diesel fuel delivered to them.
So the interpole that we're seeing behind us then, we've got 6 panels at the bottom of that to provide the solar. We have the wind vines at the top. Within that cell tower mix, we would then see the antennas and so forth above that. Is that how that would typically work out?
That is correct.
And I know even on this installation, you've done something kind of akin to that with internet, even you're broadcasting locally here.
Correct.
Now, of course, we're outside here today. We got a bit of a breeze going on here, as I'm sure you can hear in the background, as well as the birds. But even in this light breeze, we're getting some action on these.
That's correct. Yeah, the wonderful thing about our generator is it has no yoke, it has no core, and no brushes. So it spins very, very easily in low wind, and it reaches its peak output at 80 RPM, whereas a lot of conventional wind turbines have to be spinning incredibly quickly to get peak power.
So I know in Ontario here, they have weather maps showing where there is the highest available wind and this kind of thing. And of course, they have targeted traditional wind turbines in those spaces.
Correct.
When you're talking about putting this on a cell tower or something like that, you don't have that luxury of being in a high wind area.
That's correct. And the nice thing is the flexibility of our system. We can add more vanes in a low wind area to get the same appreciable amount of power. So we're not looking at the ultimate amount of power being produced, we're looking at power for an application. So in a cell tower that has high wind, we can use a 2-vane system. In an application where it's very low wind, we may have to use 4 vanes to get the same output.
And on the interpole behind us, you have a 2, a 3, and a 4.
Correct. And we're gathering data on all 3 of them simultaneously in the identical wind conditions so that we can actually correlate the output to the prevailing wind speed. And if you look on top of the pole, there's a whole weather station there that's picking up all of the dynamic data for wind speed, direction, gusts, and we're able to catalog all of that and analyze it.
You know, we're talking about cell towers in Ontario and remote locations here. It seems that, I mean, I understand Africa it's a very mobile continent with cell towers all over the place.
They do. And the cell towers there all need power. Every one of them is being run by diesel generators. The other thing is in Africa, there is no grid. And this product will solve the grid issues. By utilizing this technology, villages today that have no power can set up one of our poles, one of our intercubes, run a pump so that they can now get water, fresh water every day, and they can have some lights at night with some low wattage LEDs, and also a connection to the internet, that now they can be empowered to go to school and to learn and to move forward, as they did with cell phones.
Right. Yeah, they skipped the whole landline.
They skipped the whole landline. Now they're going to skip the whole thing with the grid.
Yeah, the governments have already acknowledged the fact they have to give power to these people in rural regions. But they can't afford the infrastructure. The developing world can't afford it. So they're burning fossil fuels to meet all their needs. We've got a scalable solution that is power in an hour. They can actually install a pole and be running power that night. Whereas if you set about to build a nuclear plant, it's 20 years from now before you turn on the first light bulb, and an awful lot of cost.
Right. So we're talking way beyond just powering a cell tower. We're talking about powering a cell tower plus a community.
Remote power generation.
Correct.
Wow, that is pretty radical.
We are a flexible and innovative species, and we have the capacity to adapt and modify our behavior. Now, we most certainly have to do so if we're to deal with climate change. It's the biggest challenge we have yet faced.
The same thing that keeps the earth warm, CO2 may make the earth too warm. It holds in heat. Methane, chlorofluorocarbons, water vapor, and carbon dioxide. They all trap heat. Methane, chlorofluorocarbons, water vapor, and carbon dioxide. They all trap heat.
It is important that the world get together to face the problems which attack us as a unit.
The evidence is clear. The globe is getting too warm. We can avoid climate catastrophes. We can do this. We can change the world. Science offers us answers for these huge challenges. It's one global ecosystem. We can do this. We can change the world. Every single thing every one of us does, affects everybody all over the world. It's one global ecosystem. Warm, wet, cold or dry, climates all start in the sky. Warm, wet, cold or dry, climates all start in the sky.
When the CO2 is high, the temperature is high, moving together in lockstep. When the CO2 is low, the temperature is low, moving together.
It is important that the world get together to face the problems which attack us as a unit.
The evidence is clear. The globe is getting too warm. We can avoid climate catastrophes. We can do this. We can change the world. Science offers us answers for these huge challenges. It's one global ecosystem. We can do this. We can change the world.
Our use of fossil fuels for energy is pushing us towards a climate unlike any seen in the history of civilization.
Adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere warms things up. The rise in CO2 comes from burning fossil fuels. When you burn them, add oxygen and makes CO2 that goes in the air. We're reversing the process by which they form.
We're talking about something that affects the entire earth. Problems that transcend nations. It is important that the world get together to face the problems which attack us as a unit.
The evidence is clear. The globe is getting too warm. We can avoid climate catastrophes. We can do this. We can change the world. Science offers us answers for these huge challenges. It's one global ecosystem. We can do this. We can change the world.